Hi guys, I'm Chris again.
And I'm Jason from Trading Games. And tonight we come at you with we want to talk a little bit about population reports for video games. And population reports is basically when you have something graded, the companies that do the grading, they offer, like the comic book people, like CGC, right, and the population reports. And this will tell you exactly how many of a certain comic have been graded, and all the grades that all of them. So if the 200 games have been graded, they'll say, 6 of them got this grade, 5 of them got this grade, 100 of them got this grade. That's basically what a population report is. And a lot of people have been talking about it lately, and why I explain what it actually is because some people don't know. Because getting video games graded is new.
Right. And
everybody's mainly talking about Wata at this point. And Wata has not released their population reports yet. So there's been a lot of people talking about it. There's been a lot of people speculating about what it will do to the prices and how interested people are in selling and buying graded video games. And what Chris proposed when we were going to talk about this is he did some great research on comic books, and we're trying to correlate that aspect of population reports, what it did to those comics, and trying to put some logic behind it in the video game realm. And and so we'll be talking just a little bit about that. So I'm gonna kind of let Chris talk here about some points, and we kind of will come to a census at the end of how we feel population reports will.
Pun intended, census.
Yeah.
So, as I steal it with my bad dad joke. So basically, I kind of like Jason said, I was just doing a little bit of research. I see a lot of people talk online about the fact that Wata doesn't have their census available yet, or population report, and that they think that once that report releases, it will just astronomically and dramatically affect this. I specifically talk about the graded games market. So this has nothing to do with just standard retail pricing or on video games, right? Because that's the only thing that would use a census or a population report, would be basically that company gets, whatever game or book or whatever it may be, and then, like I said, they just grade them out and say, this is how many of this exist, right? So, like I said, I see just a lot of people kind of talking about it, and I just started to kind of do a little bit of my own research. I have some background in comic books as well. I have done CGC grading, and I used to go to comic conventions all the time, in the same way with video games. I know this first appearance and that first appearance and so on and so forth. So I spent a lot of my life looking at these books.
And that seems to be the trend with the video games that are selling for the most money.
Correct. So
Heritage is really pumping that.
Absolutely.
First print, first release, first appearance. They're trying to correlate that market.
Right. So what's really important to understand is, I personally believe this heritage market, and you'll see if you're involved in this at all, most people agree with this, that it's art collectors and comic collectors and maybe high-end coin collectors, and they see this as a new avenue. And the argument that's usually presented of why some of these games are astronomically high is that when you look at certain rare comic books, they believe that there's so much fewer high mint copies of a sealed game that you're looking at maybe like an Action Comics #1 rarity, which, if you don't know, that's the first appearance of Superman. It's the highest recorded comic book sale of all time. I think it was like a $3.5 million, I think, is one of the last ones. And then recently, about a week and a half ago, there was another $1 million comic book sale, which was Batman #1. So that came out in 1940. Not even the first appearance of Batman. That's Detective Comics #27 is the first Joker. But it just sold for $2.2 million. It wasn't 9.4, and there is only one of that copy known in existence at that grade. Actually, according to the population report, there's 124 copies that have been graded by CGC. So I just did research on a couple games. I'll try to rattle through them pretty quick. I said games, I mean books, just to not bore you with just like numbers and stuff like that. But I looked up, for example, Giant Size X-Men. Book came out in 1975. That's the first appearance of like the 90s generation X-Men. I mean, in the 70s, but your Cyclops and your Wolverine and all that kind of stuff. There's been 10,000 copies of that book graded at CGC, okay? And currently, as it stands, a 9.8 still goes for about $22,000 on eBay, and this is sold history, and the 9.6, I saw one sell this month for $9,000, right? So again, there's 10,000 books that made it to them, and there's 188 9.8s, and it's still clearing over $20,000.
And how many Mario 3s, speculative, have they graded? 200?
Exactly. And
probably not.
I have no idea at this point. I know that there's a lot of Mario 3s out there.
We don't know.
And that's why people do want a census, and that makes sense. To make sure I'm clarifying for myself, I am all for a census. I want a census. Transparency is important, and it will be helpful to anyone that's in this industry. But as I started to look through some of these books, I kind of started to realize that I see a lot of people on the internet like, once the census comes out, everything's going to dip. Nothing's going to be worth anything. These people are crazy. Blah, 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 blah. And I feel a little bit that way, but the more I look at this, I'm kind of questioning that anymore because I'm giving myself actual documented examples of this, right? So, like, I think most people know what Amazing Fantasy 15 is. If you don't, it's the first appearance of Spider-Man. It's a holy grail book, if you will. Even at this point, CGC has graded 3,397 of them, all right? That is not a small amount of available inventory on the market. In January, a 1.0 sold for $10,000. There's 165 copies. And the best grade that I could find that sold on eBay was a 6, and it sold for $56,000, okay? Now, CGC created their census in 2000. It's 20 years of data to compile this information. When we're looking at Wata, we're only a year or two into their, again, I've said it before, it's the infantile stages of Wata, if you will, but they're still early on. Yes, it is imperative that we get this population report sooner than later. However, I don't think that it's going to drop the nuke on the market that people think. If anything, as I research this and I see how many copies of some of these really desirable books are out there and how they've still maintained a very high 5 or 6 figure value, all it's solidifying to me is that there's a new buyer in this market, and it's not your video game collectors. Don't get me wrong, we collect games. There's tons of people that do collect games that are working their way into this, but they're not the people spending, $400,000 on a signature auction. Some people are doing that because they believe that there's profit to be made. A good example I saw recently, there was a Panic restaurant that sold on Heritage in 2019. It's like a 9.6 A+. I'm pulling that off the top of my head, I think, and it sold for 16.8 on Heritage, and it just sold on Comic Connections for $24,000.
Same game, of course.
Same game, same copy of that game. And so that was something that it was like, this is the first example I've seen of a 5-figure sale that flipped within the year and made a pretty sizable profit on that. I mean, he sold it at 150% the value, $8,000, and not a small amount of money to make on one game, right? And so I think that's what's kind of important to identify is, I do think when you're looking at maybe games like God of War, right? That's a big muster right now, is that God of War sold for over 10 grand this week. It's crazy, okay?
That's just crazy town.
It's crazy town. Now, I told myself a year and a half ago when I was looking at buying God of Wars for $100 on eBay and seeing them selling at $3,000 on Heritage that, why shouldn't I do this? And it's because in my mind I was like, God of War should not be selling for that much money. Well, that 9.8 A++ was the first one to market on Heritage, and it sold for 300% the 9.6 A+ that they had up in May or whatever,
It's like traditional, your traditional metrics of what you should invest in have just been thrown out the door.
Right.
And it's like a new breed who are just feeding it, and they've just disconnected from the traditional ways of deciding what's going to be invested. They just have more money to do that with,
right?
And they're very speculative, and they're going to probably do all right with a portfolio.
Correct.
I'm sure these people are really diversifying themselves.
Right.
You know what I mean, with God of Wars and Mario 3s.
Right.
And they're just their portfolio will bounce out, but it's just the wisdom has changed the way they're investing. It's not normal, so it's a lot of people are calling it young money.
Yeah,
young money in this hobby. Young money used to be the older generation would invest in the stock market, and now this is a new market for these young money. And you hear that a lot when you start searching on the internet. It's young money really diving into this hobby, supposedly. I mean. we don't know for sure. We do know who some of the buyers are.
We have a customer here that's like 12 years old making $1,000 a month on YouTube. Okay, like that kid will be doing just fine by the time he's 18, and he sure loves video games.
And he spends money on video games.
Who knows what he's going to have at some point in time, right? There's Fortnite players that are closing $3 million contracts, right? So
Exactly.
It's just a new landscape, and it's a new avenue, and this information really surprised me. I know a lot about some of these books, Again, I have other examples, but I'm just not going to rattle numbers at you. The research is all available on there. And if you go to cgc.com, you can fully check all this information yourself. You just need an account. I had an account from when I graded in the past. And so I just started typing up books that I knew were good first appearances. And, like Iron Man, he had there's over 2,000 copies of the first appearance of Iron Man, which is Tales of Suspense 39. And same thing, there's 75 copies at a 6.0, and it's selling for 14 grand on eBay. So just because there's a lot of something, it doesn't necessarily inherently mean that if the demand is created and there's still people that desire it, that they're not still going to sell for really high dollar tickets, I keep saying when people ask me about this, do I think I don't think the question should be, do I think they should be selling for this much money? But I am very self-aware that they are selling for this much money. And if you're someone that's just like kind of a naysayer to that, well, I don't really understand why.
People are getting paid.
People are collecting these paychecks. Like, that's not happening. We, from ourselves to other people that we know, customers that we've watched. I mean, I won't point out what it was, but we looked at we looked at a game that came in not too long ago. We helped the customer. We convinced him to send it to Heritage, and it sold for $7,200 on Heritage for the one game that he pulled out of his basement. You know what I mean? And so it's like, that's a real person that just found a good game and got paid for it, right? And they really are happening, guys. And we really like researching it. So
it's fun to talk about.
And, once this census actually comes, like I said, I do think that you'll see some movements, but I don't think it's going to be the kill shot. The more and more I research and the more time I spend into looking at Heritage and the Wata graded, I just personally don't see it slowing down anytime soon.
I think we'll see less of that was crazy to spend that much.
Yeah.
I think we'll still see plenty of crazy, but it'd be justified.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Based on the reports. So.
And I hope, based on seeing some lower end Heritage sales, I feel like right now people are like kind of throwing darts at a dartboard and just seeing what hits,
Testing the market, testing the waters, proving some, what would we call that? Proving some concepts?
Yep. I've been preaching it for 2 years now, and really, if you know how to do comics, it's first appearances of popular characters that people know are going to do better than the rare games. I'm hoping for a day when the rare games catch up and that balances a little. I think rare games are underselling and common games are overselling, and I'm hoping over time we're going to kind of meet in the middle somewhere there. But only time will tell, and kind of like we said, none of us, we're all sellers, but none of us are in the driver's seat. It's these buyers are kind of making this market today and building it up themselves and deciding what they think is important and controlling it. I can't afford to manipulate that market in any way, shape, or form, and I wouldn't want to. But there are people that can, and there are people that are, they're kind of taking control of this graded hobby, and we'll see what time tells. I look forward to looking back on these types of videos that we're making now a year or two from now. Some of this is just to document our thoughts, and it'd be fun to come back to and look at. We're talking about a $35,000 or $30,000 CIB Mario mat sticker selling, and who knows, 2 years from now it could be $75,000. We don't know. It could be 10. It goes both ways.
Matt sticker could just drive the whole matte sticker market crazy. You know what I mean? First, that's the first print, supposedly. Matte, well, not supposedly.
It is.
Matte sticker seal, and then there's a gloss sticker seal. That's when we talk about that. Maybe some explanations of some of the finer arts, will educate our viewers also. So.
Right. And when we talk about this, we're not trying to steer these, like the value of these things in any direction or anything like that. It's just... all I'm ever going off of is data that's sitting there in front of me that's public domain and available to everyone else, and I'm just reading factual evidence of what happened, and who knows what will keep going, but, you know, tell us what you think, you know, again.
Great questions and comments and feedback from our last videos.
Yeah,
so
you guys have been doing great, and we appreciate it. We try to respond to most of them. You know, last night I responded to one at 1 a.m. when I was, you know, in bed, right? But
well, we're still having fun with this.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of this video game thing. It's just for fun and make some money.
Heck yeah! All right,
Thanks
guys.
for watching.
Thanks.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Chris, did you put this on here?
Yeah.
You put it on sideways. Everybody's going to notice, and the comments are going to be filled up with that.
That's okay. That's like the only thing that people should worry about is our thing.
It was like this for all the rest of the videos. Like
Damn.
this, so people could read it.
Damn the man.
Zelda.
Record this whole damn thing.
Do it.
Now I got to bleep out a curse word.
Yeah.